But we begin with our big story, the U.S. retaliating against Iranian-backed militants for that deadly drone strike on American forces. U.S. military officials say that airstrikes have now begun in Syria and Iraq. U.S. Central Command reporting American forces struck 85 targets using long-range bombers and 152 precision munitions. President Biden saying in a statement, in part, quote, "Our response began today. It will continue at times and places of our choosing." The airstrikes coming after 3 Army reservists were killed Sunday in a drone attack in Jordan. Earlier today, President Biden and the First Lady attending the solemn, dignified transfer of those service members. They are Sergeant Kennedy Landon Sanders, Sergeant Brianna Alexandria Moffett, and Sergeant William Jerome Rivers. Joining me now is retired 4-star Army General Joseph L. Votel. He's a distinguished fellow at the Middle East Institute and most recently served as head of U.S. Central Command, leading American and coalition forces in the Middle East. Thank you so much, General, for being here. I want to get your immediate reaction to these airstrikes that we now know were launched tonight.
Yeah, thanks. It's great to be with you, Elizabeth. So I think what we're watching here is, is a pretty broad strike by U.S. Central Command in Syria, probably against most of the facilities and the architecture that is used by these militant groups and by the Iranian Quds Force to kind of facilitate their attacks against Americans. 85 different targets is a lot of targets to be struck. It's important, I think, to have some patience in this. The president and others have said that this is just the first part of what will be a broader campaign. So we'll have to see where this goes. But it looks like this is a pretty good start to trying to put as much pressure and destruction on this network as we can in the initial opening salvos.
Do you see these airstrikes as an escalation? We know that this is part of an attempt from the Biden administration to reach this balance between sparking a wider war while also sending this message of deterrence to those Iranian-backed groups.
Well, I'm sure many will view this as an escalation. I guess I could view it as a response. I mean, we paid a very heavy price. Most Americans today watched the dignified transfer of our fallen soldiers coming home. That's an extraordinary price that we have paid. So this is going to be a substantial strike and a substantial campaign to extract a cost on not only the militant groups but on Iran for this action. It's very important, I think, throughout the process of this, that we send an unambiguous message to Iran that we hold them responsible for this, and that this is not going to be tolerated, and they need to knock it off. So I think many will view it as an escalation, but I think it's actually a very appropriate response, and hopefully will be followed up with even more appropriate responses in the coming hours and days.
What do you see as what the follow-up might be? Is it additional airstrikes in Syria and Iraq on more targets? How do you see this playing out in the next couple of days?
Sure. So, what will be happening now is our military forces will be assessing the effectiveness of this first round of strikes, and there may be some follow-up strikes on those targets if we haven't achieved the effects that we've had. I think it's also important to appreciate that these militant groups in Iran and other bad actors on the ground will be talking, will be communicating about this, and of course all that information will be gathered and used to help in the next round and the subsequent rounds of targeting here. So we may be using that to go after leaders and other facilitators to inflict more damage on this Iranian-backed network that has perpetrated this attack against our soldiers.
General, President Biden had said he reached this decision on military action in retaliation for the drone strike that took those lives of those American soldiers several days ago. What do you make of the timing and the decision to wait to do this tonight now?
Well, there could be a variety of things. I think, as some have reported, weather has not been particularly great in the region right now, and we do want to be able to give our forces the maximum advantage here and make sure they can see what they're hitting. That adds to precision and accuracy and in our assessment of this. Plus, we want to be able to do this continuously. So maybe what is with a period of bad weather. We may now be into a period of more favorable weather that would be supporting this. Likewise, this could be just letting the network settle out. Certainly, a lot of these targets are known to us. Those are probably already loaded up and ready to go. But again, the Iranians, these militant groups, responded in the wake of this attack. They knew they had crossed red lines, so there has been some disruption to that, and we've had to assess what that is. So there can be a variety of reasons with this, to include, communication to our partners in the region to let them know what's going on. So I don't think a deliberate response to this necessarily means anything about the quality of the response that we are providing. I think we'll have to assess that in the days ahead.
General Votel, thanks so much for your insight on this story tonight.
Great to be with you.
Let's bring the big story now to our panel. Joining us is ABC News national security and defense analyst Mick Mulroy, ABC News senior Pentagon reporter Louis Martinez, ABC News senior White House correspondent Selena Wang, and ABC News contributor and former senior CIA operations officer Daryl Blocker. Mick, I'm going to ask you to weigh in on what the general just told us. Is this the appropriate response here that can send that message of deterrence, but also not create that risk of a wider war that has been such a priority for the Biden administration?
So, Elizabeth, if anybody would know, it's General Votel. And I would agree, this did send the message, and I think it was geared toward really reducing the capabilities of these proxy forces, which likely will not change their attitude toward attacking U.S. forces. But if we can cut off the means in which they can do that, which is this steady supply of advanced weapon systems coming from Iran, like this type of drone that they used to kill our soldiers in Jordan. So I think it was measured in the sense that they did want to avoid somewhat the Iranian casualties, but they certainly did want to kill this network, if you will, of deadly weapons that get in the hands of these proxy forces that Iran up until now thought they could use steadily without consequences. Hopefully now they understand that if they keep supplying weapons to Iran, then the United States is going to hold them responsible. And I believe in the future, if they keep doing that, that these retaliatory strikes could be more significant as it relates directly to Iran.
The message has not been fully received, but the hope is that it now will be. Daryl, talk about the intelligence process. These airstrikes hit dozens of targets, several different locations. How would the military have chosen those targets?
These targeting packages have probably been on the shelf and have been dusted off and looked at significantly since the events of 7 October, and most certainly since the events that took our 3 servicemen last week. So it's a combination of looking at telemetry, meaning the signature of the missiles and the weapons that are being fired, human sources on the ground, all of our liaison contacts. I'm confident that on the diplomatic side, we're hitting all of the different regional partners. And so intelligence is a huge part of this, and the message has been sent, and cutting off, like General Votel and Mick just said, cutting off the means of these individuals is going to cut into their ability to strike us.
Well, and Louis, walk us through a little bit what this response could look like in the coming days and how this round of airstrikes has been different than what we've seen so far from the U.S. in response to the conflict in the Red Sea and this provocation from Iranian-backed militant groups. Louis, I'll go to you on that one.
These airstrikes are very different, Elizabeth, because they are hitting multiple locations multiple times over the course of several days. That is not what has been happening so far. One of the things that we've seen so far is that we've had pinprick strikes targeting very precise locations affiliated with these militia groups. But one of the things that we're going to see now is that this is going to last for several days, potentially other airstrikes that could be the same scope as the ones we're seeing tonight. 85 targets in one round is a lot. So the question then becomes, are we going to see other similar strikes over the coming days, or are they going to be more less, more diminished, but still carrying the same weight of the airstrikes. In other words, targeting those locations that Daryl and then Mick have been talking about that are affiliated with those militia groups. So this remains to be seen exactly how this is going to carry out. And let's not forget, we've been hearing from U.S. officials in not just Iraq and Syria, but possibly Yemen, where the Houthis have been striking at those ships and commercial shipping lanes.
Oh, and Selena, we know that this was a decision that the president thought about heavily. It was a solemn day today. We watched as he attended the dignified transfer of those 3 fallen soldiers. What can you tell us about how the president came to this decision from the U.S. about this response?
And Elizabeth, the president's attendance at that solemn, dignified transfer really underscores the weight of the decision that he makes. This was not an easy decision for the president. He had spent many days huddled with his national security team weighing the options here. We know that this administration is laser focused on not escalating the situation. But the death of American troops, that crossed a red line, so we knew the president was going to have to respond differently. And this is in a larger scale and scope, as Louis was just describing, than what the U.S. has done before. Before, the U.S. response did not stop the more than 160 attacks from these Iranian-backed groups. So this had to send a clear message. But there are still some fears within the U.S. administration, as we had been hearing over the last few days, that the president's response could still lead to an escalation. He has been facing some pressure from Republican lawmakers to hit directly at Iran, but we've learned that the president has deep misgivings about that, and that is not a scenario that we are expecting.
Mick, Louis, Selena, and Daryl, thank you all so much for your insight on this.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.